What's up everyone, Alex here. I've shown a lot of love for turn-based JRPGs on this channel, so I wanted to give some love to action RPGs. For this list in particular, we're defining this as any Japanese-style RPG that allows players to move characters in real time alongside other things that are happening concurrently. This definition allows for games like Xenoblade Chronicles to be included in this list, while excluding ATB-based Final Fantasies due to the inability to move characters in real time. Before we start the list, I do want to make special mention of one game that doesn't quite fill the criteria, but is something that's related to a larger JRPG series, and that is Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. Now, I want to make mention of this because when it first came out, a lot of people really underestimated what this game actually offers, but then the more we actually get away from its initial release and the further we get away from the memes, there's been a lot more people that are actually jumping into the game and recognizing that it actually tells a fantastically good story. And that's because a lot of the memes and the marketing want us to actually underestimate the storytelling and what it can offer. The story that turns out is something that I'm not going to spoil because obviously I played through it, but if you're a huge Final Fantasy I fan and you love those characters and you love the world and you want it to be expanded, try out Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin because it's also a really fun co-op game. This is unlike any other Souls-like because you can literally make a lobby and just hang out with your friends and play through the entire game together. It's actually really cool. So if you're just looking for a fun action RPG to play with your friends, you're gonna love Stranger of Paradise Final Fantasy Origin. The first official entry on this list is kind of cheating because the original game came out on the PS2, but is worth bringing up because Vanillaware actually completely gutted this game's action engine and completely redid everything, which is Odin Sphere Leifthrasir. If you played the original PS2 game, that game feels a bit stiff, especially when compared to Leifthrasir, which plays closer to games like Dragon's Crown or Muramasa the Demon Blade than it does the PS2 original. And thank goodness it does, because this actually is the true realization of what Odin Sphere really is. Odin Sphere Leifthrasir features multiple playable characters that all play differently. And mind you, this is an action RPG that really has a huge amount of variety in its gameplay that constantly alters the risk and reward that you're so used to, but also provides a variety of gameplay experiences that make just playing through Odin Sphere Leifthrasir truly fun. So if you've never actually tried this game before, I highly recommend playing this. Don't underestimate it because it's 2D, because it's going to be some of the most gorgeous 2D artwork and animation you've seen in a very long time. This next one is a little bit cheating as well because the original game came out on the Super Nintendo era, but it wasn't until recently that we actually finally got to play Trials of Mana, specifically the Trials of Mana Remake, which I want to talk about right now. Apart from the lack of multiplayer and of course the full 3D remake, there's not much different between the original Trials of Mana with the remake. I just happened to have played the Switch version of this game, but really fell in love because it did feel to me that it captured a lot of the magic of Secret of Mana, which of course I played back in the day. And if you want to talk about what I like better between Trials of Mana Remake and the Secret of Mana Remake, this one hands down is the better one of the two. It also features reorchestrated tracks from Secret of Mana that are gonna be familiar to fans, and the fact that you can pick multiple different combinations of characters and have multiple endings based off of that choice is just so much fun that added a lot of replay value to what could have been a throwaway game. But instead, it's a fully fleshed out game that more people should really check out. Now, this next one is by far, in my opinion, one of my most favorite action RPGs of all time, and that is Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana. A lot of my favorite aspects of action RPGs gets checked off here. A very rewarding block and dodge roll system, a large explorable landmass, great things to do when you're not partaking in dungeoning and questing. There's just so much in Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana, in addition to its incredible story and characters and party-based gameplay, that is a treat even several years after its original release. And now that all of the games have been patched to basically perform to the best of their ability, it is no doubt that Ys 8 Lacrimosa of Dana should be played by anyone who's ever been curious about action-based JRPGs. This is a must-play. Neo: The World Ends With You is absolutely one of those games that people did not expect to have come out, but kudos to Square Enix for actually having the guts to release a sequel for a game that, at the time, it was just practically just a cult hit. This was so much fun to play, and I remember playing it for review several years ago, that it was just oozing with charisma and character and personality that it reminded me of why I love The World Ends With You so much. The action-based gameplay is quite different from the original game, but it's still really fun and very rewarding, and possibly a bit easier to understand since you don't have to play with two screens and whatnot. And the music, oh my goodness, the music. And of course the plot. There's so many cool surprises in Neo: The World Ends With You that you just have to play it to understand what I'm talking about. Persona 5 Strikers is the sequel to Persona 5. Yes, that's been confirmed. But what really sets Persona 5 Strikers apart from any other warrior-style game out there, and yes, this was developed by Omega Force, who did the Warriors games for everybody else, is that it doesn't feel like a Warriors game. It feels more like a traditional Persona game more than anything else, complete with its own terminologies and characters and tons of personas. And that's the thing that really surprised me, is that there's so many different personas that you can have with your character, plus fusion and a whole bunch of other stuff, that I didn't expect Persona 5 Strikers to be really a comprehensive Persona game. And the changes that the developer made in order to accommodate both the Persona-style gameplay and the Warrior-style gameplay in such a smart way is just a really cool way to return to this world in a very meaningful fashion, in a very different way, that I'm actually hoping that it'll get a sequel, because it's really that good. So if you've never played Persona 5 Strikers before, and you want to hang out with the Phantom Thieves, highly recommend giving this one a shot. When I saw Scarlet Nexus, immediately I thought to myself, oh, this is like Control, but anime. But it's so much more than that, because in this post-apocalyptic world, there's so much more at stake, and two playable protagonists, which is really freaking awesome. I remember when I first played this game, I immediately thought to myself, there has never been a game that featured telekinesis that felt this visceral and impactful. And when you combine that with the QTEs that the game has, it really makes every single hit feel like it's so much more than just pressing buttons. Scarlet Nexus was absolutely one of my favorite RPGs of the modern era, and just talking about it right now is making me want to go back and play it. It's really that good. Tales of Arise is the fastest selling Tales game of all time. And I'm actually really excited to talk about this game because they recently announced that there's DLC coming next month for this game. What makes me love Tales of Arise, in addition to its party and its characters, it's its Marvel vs. Capcom style gameplay that allows you to tag party members in and out and change to them to continue the onslaught, the offense, if you will. That's something that not a lot of people talk about when they talk about Tales of Arise, but that is immediately something that I gravitated towards because a lot of it really reminded me of MVC, like calling characters to just kind of jump in to do a quick hit, for example, only to be able to tag to that character if we so wish. Which is really crazy to think about because you can make some really amazing chains that you couldn't do in any other Tales game before, leading to a kind of complexity that is both simple, easy to understand, but very timing focused. And I think that's what really separates Tales of Arise from any other Tales game out there. But I have to make special mention to Tales of Berseria because a lot of you are going to be really pissed for me not mentioning it. Honestly, Tales of Berseria is a truly awesome game. That one is multiplayer, and certainly features a much darker and deeper gameplay experience than Tales of Arise. A lot of you have wanted me to talk about this game for a very long time, ever since this got released years ago, and now I can finally talk about it, which is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Yes, Final Fantasy VII Remake is an action game. Things happen in real time. Yes, there's a menu and so on and so forth. But I think one of the things that I really appreciate now about Final Fantasy VII Remake after playing Final Fantasy XVI is how well the party-based gameplay actually works. You're a bit more hands-on in Final Fantasy VII Remake when compared to the aforementioned game, but when I really sit down and think about it, Square Enix has been experimenting with how to make a more approachable, real-time action RPG experience ever since the Super Nintendo era with Secret of Mana, and I feel that Final Fantasy VII Remake actually gets pretty close to that ideal that they want to obtain. Now, I'll probably focus more on talking about that in a separate video, but if there's one thing that really made me love Final Fantasy VII Remake are the focuses on the bit characters like Jessie, Biggs, and Wedge. Having those moments where you hang out with these characters really enhanced my appreciation of both the remake and the original Final Fantasy VII that I played. And you know, that's beside all the weird ghost stuff that happens in the game that I won't get into. And needless to say, I am very excited for Final Fantasy VII Rebirth because there's so many different characters that are going to show up on that we love, and I'm looking forward to seeing the evolution of this battle engine. NieR Automata is the perfect storm of creativity and ideas from both Yoko Taro and Platinum Games, and this is one of those games that finally recognized and realized Yoko Taro's full vision of what a NieR game can be. I will never forget playing as both 9S and 2B, of course, and exploring these sparse yet evocative environments. Like, sure, for a Square Enix game, these environments don't have the same amount of detail as something like Final Fantasy VII Remake, as I mentioned. But what it does have is a sense of presence and scale that you just don't find in many other games out there. And it's very easy to forget that yes, NieR Automata did come out within the past few years. And even though we're getting further and further removed from that game, so many other games have wanted to collaborate with Yoko Taro, featuring characters from the game, that you could see its effect on so many other people, and not just players like us, but also developers as well. The way that it smartly talks about moral philosophy and all these different kinds of ideas and applies that to the player is something so magical and so unique that it truly ranks up as one of the great action RPGs of the modern era. Which leads me to Xenoblade Chronicles 3. And I bet a ton of you watching this were literally waiting for me to mention at least one Xenoblade Chronicles because I had hinted at it from the beginning. I picked 3 because I really loved the premise of Xenoblade Chronicles 3. The fact that its main characters had a very limited lifespan was something that was just such a philosophical puzzle that made a lot of the stakes in the game feel so much higher than what they were. This, of course, in addition to the class-based system that you could really toy around with that, honestly, I got really addicted to, plus the scale of its environments, plus all the really huge enemies, it's just an absolute treat. Xenoblade Chronicles 3 really gave me the Xenoblade game that I've been waiting for a very long time. And with so many meaningful quests, so many different tweaks to streamline the player experience, this to me is the perfect Xenoblade Chronicles game. And again, as with most games on this list, if you've never played Xenoblade Chronicles 3 or have never gotten a Switch, this is one of those games. Heck, the entire trilogy. I highly recommend the entire trilogy if you've never owned a Switch. This is a must-have on that platform. As I mentioned in the beginning, I gave a lot of love to turn-based JRPGs over the past few weeks. And if you want to check out a new series I'm starting called 10 Great Turn-Based JRPGs, click the video up top and find out more. And if you've got any good action JRPG recommendations that have been released over the past few years, I'd love to see it in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.